Okay.
We're on?
Yes, we are.
All right. Good evening and welcome to the Township Bedminster regular meeting of the Township Committee for November 18, 2019. It is 7:01 p.m. I'll recognize that we have a full attendance of our Township Committee members here, and I also recognize that we have Township Committee woman-elect Gina Fernandez in the audience. Welcome, Gina. Ms. Sullivan, may we have the Open Public Meetings Act statement?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was sent to the Courier News in Somerville and to the Burnsville News in Whippany, also to all subscribers, and then posted at the Township Municipal Building as of January 7, 2019.
Great. Thank you. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. First matter is the approval of the minutes. We've got 2 minutes to approve. One is the regular Township Committee meeting, and the second is the closed executive session. Has everyone had the chance to go through the minutes and provided Ms. Sullivan with comments? Any comments have not yet been provided to Ms. Sullivan? If not, can we have a motion to approve?
So
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Permits and raffles. We have one permit and raffle for tonight. It is social affair permit for Heartworks Inc. on March 21, 2020 from 6:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. at Hamilton Farms Golf Club. Any questions or comments regarding that permit? No. If not, can we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Again, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Since the last time we met, which was first week in November, there was an election. And we had 2 candidates with us tonight who won that election. Gina Fernandez, Committeeman Doug Stevenson. So first off, congratulations to both of you guys. And also congratulations to the opponents, to Jeff Beyer and Zahir Jan. Just once again, you guys have all heard me echo Steve Parker's sentiments, but democracy works when we present our voters with options. And we had 2 options. Township folks voted for Stevenson Fernandez, and we congratulate you guys for your victory, and also congratulate Zahir Jan and Jeff Beyer for running a good campaign. It was certainly cordial between all the candidates and the campaign folks, so it was really good to see, and it was about issues and what people had to say about the candidates. So again, congratulations, Gina and Doug. Which brings us to straw vote for 2020 mayor. So one of the things that, Judy, I'm not sure how far back this goes with Steve or with Bob before that.
We first did this under Mayor Holtaway.
So one of the jobs that each mayor has to do is to populate the committees and councils and boards. Some of those are mayor appointees and some are township committee appointees, but to get the process going, it's best to start that process now, because folks are trying to budget and figure out what they're doing for 2020. We've already received some news from some folks who would like to be reappointed. They know their terms are coming up. They'd like to be reappointed, and the time to do that is really now. So the mayor for 2020 can start affecting those appointments earlier than later. So Gina, what I'd like to do right now is to bring you up to the dais for the first time in an unofficial yet official capacity.
So you have to sit down. You have to move.
I'm going to vote for you.
You definitely have to move.
So welcome, Committeewoman-elect Fernandez. And so, Judy, can I turn it over to you?
Yes, you can turn it over to me. So what we normally do is I will open the nominations for the mayor for 2020 to the Township Committee. Mr. Stevenson.
Nomination. I would like to enthusiastically, strenuously nominate Jacobs for another term. They've done a phenomenal job leading us. I think you've done just a great job with the messaging. You're very, your demeanor, everything about you is, it's only appropriate, I think, that you, if you'd like it, get another run at it. I think you've done a great job, all kidding aside. Very nice.
Okay.
I'll second that nomination.
Second the nomination, okay, by Mr. Hickey. We can leave it at that. Are there any other nominations while the floor is open for nominations? Entertained? Okay. Then I would ask for a motion to close the nominations.
So moved.
Mr. Stevenson?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, the
Aye.
nominations are therefore closed. So the vote would be to have Larry Jacobs be the 2020 mayor. And with that, I guess I should go down and do a roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Fernandez?
Aye.
Sorry. Ms. Moreski?
Enthusiastically for my running mate, aye.
Okay, and Mr. Jacobs, are you accepting?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Aye.
So it's unanimous, and the straw poll is successful, and thank you all.
Great, and thank you, Gina, for joining us. Okay, with that, twice each night, we open up the dais and that microphone to public comment. We will do it for the first time now, and there'll be an opportunity later on in the meeting for a second go-around at public comment. A member of the public who wishes to make a comment, please approach the microphone right now. Thank you. Please give your name and address.
Good evening, everybody. Brian Haggerty, Fairview Drive, Bedminster. Not yet a member again of the Bedminster Board of Education, although apparently I also won election while I was on.
That, and my regrets for not
But I wasn't-
mentioning that earlier.
You're talking about candidates. I was not a candidate.
You were not a candidate, but you won an election without being a candidate,
Yes, it is.
so congratulations.
Thank you.
And you've decided to accept that position.
Yes, I am.
Okay, great.
Here's your exclusive. Or scoop. For various reasons, what's going on in the township, I started getting really back into Chapter 13 of the codes against the zoning laws. And then I ran across the COA housing. And I'm going to be back on the Board of Ed soon, with those forecasts of children and so forth. I'm confused by something, I hope you can clarify. A lot of lawyers up there. I see, and we confirmed a few months ago, that everything's up to date on the website. Some of the ordinances lately are 2017-005 was the OR corporate suite zone, south of 78. There was some process change in 2017-008, which was process stuff somewhere in there. Setbacks in floor areas, the Hickey amendment, 2017-113.
You give me credit for that, but that's, I wasn't on the committee at that point.
Okay.
But thank you.
But there was the Affordable Housing Ordinance, 2018 number 10 in 2018, which amended 13906. And then we run across the Fair Share Housing Agreement of June 7th, 2018. And I'm wondering, because there's the requirement in 906, it won't take so long, I'm not going to read all these, it's just some. There's a requirement in 906 about the percentages there it is, the percentages for new developments where there's an increase in density. And when I read the master plan and the review of the master plan, for which you can take some credit, I see there's a lot of reference to build out. I've been coming to these meetings since Mayor Holtway was talking about build out. And so I'm wondering, when there's match the wording 906, if there's a density variance, approval or redevelopment plan to permit higher densities, or there's a rezoning where there's a change of zoning density, do we then have to change the denominator and so the numerator gets bigger, or are we able to have higher densities to get a few years down the road, very low income rentals without risking having to chase the dog's tail. I think in Berkeley Heights, they're putting in 1,000 units, and they're gonna get halfway to their COA shortfall, because it's, inclusive and it's only portions. So I wonder what the status is of that, and if you can shed any light on that.
Brian, what's
I don't even know.
your question?
What's going to happen if there's a higher density? You're not contemplating any zoning changes. And I know you can't get into details of zoning applications. What do we need, 6 or 7 more apartments over the next 5 years, and the plan is to be in place in another year or 2 or something like that? I've seen other towns where there's inclusion developments to get their COA shortfall with ratios like 15%. Berkeley, for example, building 1,000 units won't get them to the COA number that they need in 2 years, or they're already short, or whatever it is. In Bedminster, we thought we were good. We are good for now. In a couple of years, we're going to need a few more very low-income rentals or low-income rentals. Can we do that as a plan? If we try to do it through business remedies or increasing densities, will we end up with a larger denominator, and therefore instead of 6, we need 20? And it just goes on like that. This ordinance was the most recent change in zoning, all right? The one that changed 906, and that has the 15%. What is the goal? That's my question.
What's the goal?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure. Here, you've got a few minutes, but
I think the simple answer, Mayor, is we have an agreement we entered with Fair Share Housing Center that was approved by the court, and that is what binds us. Nothing more, nothing less, and certainly it was many, many pages, and to suggest that anyone sitting at the dais knows that by heart at this particular point in time would be foolish. But that is what governs us. And if you want a copy of that, you can get that from Ms. Sullivan. There you have it.
So I'm reading it, I'm confused. If we try to do the COA requirements that come up over the next few years, that we're already good, but we have something coming up in the next couple of years. If we try to do that by inclusionary developments, in other words, 15% rentals, the 20% sales, does that get us toward the number, or does it keep us static toward the number?
do you know, Brian? Do you know what the settlement with Fair Share Housing says?
While I read it, I don't really understand what it means.
So there are obligations in there
Right.
that the municipality eventually has to come up with 28 rental units, or zoning to accommodate 28 rental units, family rental units.
Okay.
So there are 2 options. Either to be built or they have to be zoned for.
Okay.
Current zoning, you talked about 15%.
If this
There's-
variance or changes zoning, the inclusion must be 15%, right? Is that part of this plan? Because I don't find it in the plan, I find it in the ordinance.
Ordinance is part of the settlement agreement with Fair Share Housing. It's also part of the court order that was approved by Judge Miller. The ordinance was a requirement of the settlement agreement.
Okay.
That ordinance that you have in front of you was approved not only by Judge Miller, it was approved by Adam Gordon of Fair Share Housing Center, and it was approved by the then Special Master Philip Caton, who was appointed by Judge Miller.
Okay. Then I'll focus my question to, does the 15% inclusion on any new development keep us static? Do we still need the plan, or does it move toward the goal?
I cannot emphasize any more that we are governed by the agreement with Fair Share Housing Center, the ordinance that you have in front of us, and the court order of Judge Miller.
Okay.
Okay?
I still don't understand. I just want to
Well,
make sure.
Brian, I don't understand your question.
Yeah.
There are no pending zoning changes right now. So if you're asking, how does it apply to pending rezoning, right now, there is no pending rezoning.
Is there something you're looking to uncover in a Columbo-like fashion that we're missing?
No, I just, Mr. Valero, I just come straight at it when I...
Well, I don't understand what you're asking.
I might have reasons to ask questions in another venue, perhaps in this very room, and I don't understand the basis of my question yet, because I don't know whether the 15% falls as static. I can't understand. And if there's no further explanation, that's fine. I can live with that for tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The microphone is still available. It will be available later in the evening as well. Any other comments coming up? Leaning forward, yes?
I don't know.
Name and address, please.
Caitlin Cother, 255 Rattlesnake Bridge Road in Bedminster. I come before the committee this evening to address the issue at LaBelle North, located here in Bedminster Township. And I've been very much so in touch with Mr. Hickey. He's been very responsive. And Mayor Jacobs, I haven't had the chance to speak with you about this, and I really wish that you would have gotten back to me, but I understand that your schedule is rather tight.
And Ms. Cother, I am fully aware of what's been going on, been keeping abreast with Mr. Hickey and Ms. Sullivan as well. So I'm aware of your situation. Please proceed with your public comment.
Sure. I'm seeking the township to potentially either come up with a resolution and or ordinance to fall under the relocation revolving fund. And this would be for the instance that if there is another tenant within Bedminster Township, not just myself, or any other person within the community who is affected by their landlord not complying with zoning or code enforcement, like issues such as myself, that there is a fund put aside for, in the event the township has to remove somebody due to unsafe conditions such as myself. I have been given a notice to vacate based on the facts for unsafe living conditions of the building structure where I've been residing in the barn at LaBelle. And it has actually been defined that the displacing agency, in this particular instance, governing agency being Bedminster Township, Fire Prevention Department, should have been able to set forth the enactment for an ordinance for this type of circumstance where I would be given relocation. And I'm really not quite sure whether it's because of fair housing or if because the municipality in general doesn't have many rentals, because, you know, I'm rather concerned about this because, you know, I could say honestly, and I've been before you all before on a monthly basis expressing my concerns about where I reside, and I do this because I care about where I live. My family goes back within Bedminster and Far Hills 3 generations, and so, you know, I would expect that the committee come up with some sort of ordinance to protect anybody moving forward, not just myself.
Okay, so you have given, I believe through Ms. Sullivan, a copy of the statute
Yep.
that authorizes. We forwarded to Mr. Bellardo. Mr. Bellardo is going to take a look at it. I believe there are other provisions within that same statute that give you that same level of protection to pursue against the property owner if you so wish to do so.
Correct.
And so, so there's been opportunity, I believe, Mr. Hickey, we had discussions about putting you in contact with both legal aid and the county on relocation, and legal aid for your rights as a tenant with regard to the property owner. Mr. Bellardo will take a look at that ordinance, the statute that authorizes the ordinance, and John, you can report back to us.
Carol Vadinsky Spicer, who heads legal aid down in Somerville. I would suggest you contact her. She's often worked on matters like this, someone I went to school with years ago, so I would encourage you also to reach out to her with respect to any remedies against the property owner for recouping.
And-
I can add to that, I did reach out to her as well, and she got back to me and asked for copies of, what's been generated so far regarding the violations, and I did provide that to her, actually last Friday, so.
And John, I think we can say, you can tell, please stop us if we go too far afield, but on the issue of the violations themselves, so there's been numerous inspections over this last week, and there's...
Fire prevention was out there and zoning was out there, and they're the ones that did the imminent hazard violation and asked Ms. Cothers to leave.
And John, do those sit with you right now, those violations, or are they been issued?
I've just been aware of them. right
Yeah,
now.
and there are additional, those
I've
have
walked
been
in,
issued.
so I...
Those have already been issued?
Those have been issued, the fire prevention has already issued them and has been in contact with the property owner. There are additional violations from construction that have been provided to Mr. Velardo to review, and as to whether we're moving forward with them, that hasn't happened yet.
So, Ms. Cothard, there are a number of moving parts right here.
Sure.
But certainly your rights as a tenant are best preserved by dealing with an attorney, and once again, we would suggest legal aid and seeing what those rights are and your pursuit against any of those rights against the property owner. In the meantime, the township will move with all appropriate speed in bringing these violations to a resolution, whatever that resolution may be.
Indeed.
Okay, I just want to add one more piece to that, is that within the statute, maybe this could be also for Mr. Velardo's additional information for him, is that within the statute, that the municipality that has enacted an ordinance pursuant to subsection A of this section may pay relocation assistance to any displaced person who has not received the required payment from the owner landlord of the structure at the time of eviction, which would have been the day I was physically removed from the premises of November 13th. Furthermore, of this section, a revolving relocation assistance fund established pursuant to section 2, all relocation assistance costs incurred by a municipality pursuant to the subsection shall be repaid by the owner landlord of the structure to the municipality in the same manner of relocation costs that are billed and collected under section C20:4-41 in section of PL 1984 C24-4.2, and these repayments shall be deposited into the municipality's revolving relocations assistance fund. So essentially, this will, allow the town to move forward against the landlord if they have not been cooperative with me, which to date they have not been.
And you also, that same statute, I think that's G of that statute, H of that same statute affords you those rights directly against the fund.
And that's what I actually went down to the county clerk's office, to Mr. Peters, and county council, along with deputy county council, is reviewing my lien to place against LaBelle North. So I won't hear about that till tomorrow. However, I would like to see, the township protect its residents, as you all are elected to do.
All right, Mr. Velardo is going to read that ordinance. He's going to report back to us on what that statute means, what comes with adopting that ordinance, how the mechanics of that system work. And John, I'm not, I don't want to put you through December.
If you would provide copies of your leases with Lana LaBelle to Ms. Sullivan, that
Sure,
would
I'll
be...
actually provide her with a copy of the actual notice of lien that includes all that information.
Well, the leases and everything else.
Yep.
Are you living in alternative premises now?
I have been.
Are you still within Bedminster Township?
I would like to continue to do so, yes, but I'm in the nearby area.
Okay. All right, so John, when do you think you can report back to us?
Well, as you know, Mayor, I will be at the League of Municipalities in 3 days, and then I'm in court Friday, so probably, depending upon when I get the additional information, probably before next meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other public comments? There will be a second opportunity. We will now move to monthly report discussions by subcommittee chair, Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. So, Somerset Youth Alliance, no update from last time. I have reached out to Ms. Grundyke just to see, how can we help? How can I help? And I'm just waiting to hear back. So I don't know whether she's working through that.
Do you know if they ever prepared I spoke to Deb about preparing a letter that we could send to the county. I've not heard anything further.
I have no update from last time. Just been quiet.
Judy, do you know if there's been any further action by Deb Grundyke?
No,
Okay.
I haven't heard anything from her. I know they had a meeting, but as to what came of that, I don't know.
Okay.
Historic preservation, we've got our meeting coming up this Thursday, so I'll report back at the next meeting. And that brings me to DPW. Without getting into any specifics, I'll just say that Colin, Judy, and I met with Art Tebow, and we had a most recent round with labor negotiations that's proceeding. All seems to be on course, no major hiccups, so we'll keep working that through, but nothing to report, and certainly nothing specific while we're in the middle of negotiations. Colin and I met with John since our last meeting on a host of DPW issues. The first thing would be, we're trying to replace the streetlights in the hills. John's low, if not out of inventory on the pole, so trying to get in front of that and ordering some additional poles for inventory, but the issue now has come up with a change in technology with the type of bulb we're using, going to an LED bulb. The existing ballasts, that's the word, they're not compatible. So we're trying to figure out a way that we can keep the colonial look of what's required in the hills with the updated, hardware. So we're reaching out for our friends over in Berners to see what they're doing, and that's coming in real time. I did see an update on that between Berners and us, but that's in process, and we've got to obviously work with the Hills Master Associations to make sure what we're putting in is consistent with the documentation there. We're also looking at the actual lumens that are being produced, because the LEDs tend to give off more of a whiter light than a yellowy light, so we're trying to keep the lumens consistent with what's required up there, so that it's not like going different neighborhoods you're getting a different look. So we're certainly sensitive to those issues, and we'll follow as we work through those issues, but we're pretty confident, yes, John, that we can find the infrastructure, the hardware that's going to be compatible.
That's correct.
So it's just a matter of us locating it, pricing it out, and ordering it. We also talked about trying to come up with more transparency in our pavement management plan, identifying certain streets in town that are really in need of pavement and resurfacing, and sort of tiering those streets so that there is a sense of understanding by our community as to when we may be coming around and looking at their particular street. Certainly would encourage residents, if you think you've got a particular issue on your street, to reach out, let us know. We'll be happy to investigate that and place it in the tier accordingly.
Was there an end result on that, or any recommendations at this point?
Well, at this point, I think what we've got is the streets that we've identified as the next round. That would sort of be top tier, and now we're working on building out the roster of streets that are going to come in behind it. It's obviously nothing, not binding, just informational, just to sort of give the folks an idea of to where things are. As Sally Smith calls from New Street and says that she wants, her street's not good, we'll be able to say, okay, look, we identified your street, but it's 2 behind or 1 behind, or yes, you're up next. Just so there's an understanding as to when we may be coming around. With respect to the paving, there are several streets, as we know, that are all paved, that are all dirt. And John's identified a couple streets that no matter what we do, storms come, they wash out. So what we're thinking about is testing patches of streets out in the west that are not paved with some degree of capping or paved, just to ensure those particular problem areas stop washing out. Streets would remain dirt. You might have a 100-yard section or 50-yard section, where it's continually washing out, where we pave it and make it stable, if you will. But this is not definite. This is like sort of ideas we're coming up with that when we stop pouring resources into washout, and no matter what we do, we're left with washout.
Do they tend to be on hills or on the backside of the hill? Is that where you tend to find it?
It's on hills.
It's on
Definitely
hills.
on hills. And there's probably consistently 5 to 10 spots that religiously wash out every time we have a heavy rain.
Would your proposal involve paving the slope or paving the flat at the bottom?
Probably paving the entire slope. Try to keep the debris from running out into the stream areas and wherever it overflows. Part of this is going to be somewhat of a stormwater management resolution to try to eliminate that runoff from those areas.
Does that become, just from a snow plowing perspective, does that make it a little more difficult?
It doesn't make it difficult, it's going to be a challenge, I would say, because now I have sometimes where I don't salt normally on dirt roads during those storms, now I have the asphalt that we're going to have to maintain. So it's a toss up at this point in time. There's no great answer. I've tried just about everything. Wish somebody could come up with a solution, but the solutions aren't that easy to come up with.
Does Paul Morrow have anything to add to this discussion? I'm sure you talk to him all the time, just don't know.
I can chat with him again, but my guess is, whatever I've been doing is probably what he's going to recommend, so.
So the point is, for these little areas, it's just, we tried everything under the sun to keep the dirt in place, and Mother Nature just dictates that it's a washout zone, so.
Plant more
So
trees.
it's a messaging thing too. I get the nature of the western part of the township and the dirt road out there, so I think we'll have to do some messaging and talking to some of the folks that are out there to explain what we're thinking, sort of take temperature on who's living out there and see what they think about it. But these are preliminary discussions that we're having, just trying to get around this bugaboo that we've got that just continues to wash out no matter what we do. Let's see, and then the last thing is just in terms of working through everything that seems to touch DPW from a facility standpoint. Courthouse needs an expansion of its files, right? We know that the IT server room needs a couple changes and some temperature issues there. But it occurred to us as we're talking through these issues that, it might behoove us to either reformulate, reconstitute, or form, not sure which, if it's ever been in existence before, but like a facilities review board of some sort where John, Judy, members of the dais here, the TC, and anybody else we might think is appropriate, sort of sits as a board in a supervisory capacity. The idea would be things that are budgeted for our budget session, that board would sort of be overseeing that to make sure that's being implemented. And then, of course, as issues come up during the year, that would be the point of contact to say, hey, this facility that we have, whether it's a rented facility that we have out the JVH or the Performing Arts, or Contemporary Arts rather, or our own internal facilities here, that they could go to the committee and put in the request, and then at least there's one subcommittee of township that's sort of stewarding those issues through and reporting back to TC. I wouldn't envision that the board would have like decision-making ability per se, but it would really be a point of contact so we would know who's sort of shepherding the issues of facilities improvements and upgrades, just to promote ease of facilities. If we do one thing, it's going to bleed over to another department. It would be nice to know that if in that department they had a need for something too, so you could take out both with one step. So just some forward thinking that we were doing there, in addition to obviously the ongoing current projects that we're working on. And with respect to that, I guess just the Schoolhouse Park, the weather's dictating that we're on hold there, but the idea is to be up and running there for springtime of 2020. And that's the updates for DPW.
Great. Sounds like,
A lot going
doesn't
on.
sound like, it is a lot going on. So thank you, Doug, for all your hard work, and John and Colin as well. Mr. Hickey?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, all. No update on rec. Board of Health, we have a meeting on Thursday. We have one application pending. We had an IT subcommittee meeting last week. The good news is our hardware upgrade projects are on schedule. Bad news is we had a phone server outage, which has been rectified. It impacted not only, obviously, the township offices, but also police in terms of the non-emergency number. We recognize that's critical. Folks were able to reach 911, obviously, but when they called the non-emergency number, they hit the same problem that everybody else in the township had. So we're going to look at what needs to be done, and Sergeant Bernardo sat in because you were absent, Chief. Did a great job representing the needs of the police department. We'll make sure that as we look at what else we need to do on that phone server to make sure it's reliable right now, but we need to improve reliability, make sure there's a fallback plan if it does go down in the future, so that the police department can be contacted by our residents. So we're working on that. Mayor, I suspect you'll discuss library and land use, so that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Santucci.
Mr. Mayor, we're continuing to work on some HR issues. We'll be doing that next week. And my other update can be with our solicitation ordinance.
Okay, which will be coming up very shortly.
That's all.
Ms. Moreski.
Good evening, Mayor, and congratulations.
Oh, yeah.
We had a very quick meeting at EC. I think we're doing records with this because not too much is going on. But real quick, we have an update for the turtle tunnels. Brian Zarate from the New Jersey Fish and Wildlife is going to be reviewing the tunnels and reporting back to EC on February 5th. So if anybody...
So he's going to be reviewing the tunnels in advance and then reporting back to us?
Yep.
Okay.
What's
Yep.
he reviewing for?
Maintenance, I'm sorry.
Like-
Maintenance
like
on the tunnels. And how
Is
many
this going in there?
The drive
So
is
years
the-
ago,
where
so
the-
years ago, it was the Montclair State, I think it was the PhD students from Montclair State. They're the ones who put the cameras in,
Yep.
and they were reporting back to us the species that we're going through, the observations. I don't believe that study's still ongoing, so it is curious to see what Brian's study is going to be reporting on, so
So
actually
February
wait
5th.
his words.
Actually, Mayor, the Fish and Game had some of those cameras out there. They pulled the cameras finally, so the information that was in the cameras is what Brian is going to
Okay.
present.
Oh,
Oh, good.
excellent.
All right.
Good to know. Oh, John,
I met with him and Tim Walters on site.
oh, good. And since you're sharing, do you know if the EV charging stations were tested? Because
I do not.
Tim was gonna get with you to do that.
I have not heard anything from him.
Okay, I'll call him up.
Do you have an answer on that?
So
The plug fit, but we haven't actually physically plugged it in, so it's just a matter of me arranging a time with Tim and John to flip the power switch and make sure everything works.
we need to know. But so those are all done except for the testing. And the committee actually is really interested in continuing EV charging, and they're considering adding a question to the environmental review scoping list to see if there's any interest from builders who are doing new construction to put EV charging stations. Now, that would be mostly corporate buildings, not really anybody's house. And I don't think we have too much building going on, but they're trying to make sure that the town stays, focused on electric power.
John, is that and I know we're going to ask you a land use question, but we do know you are a land use attorney as well. So if an existing facility or one that was just approved, let's say, so Primrose was approved for a school or a daycare facility, if they wanted to add EV charging stations at a few of their parking spots, would that require going back to the board? Or is that something they can do administratively?
I think if the town makes a policy decision, you could do it internally and administratively.
Okay.
And it might even under your ordinance that you passed a few years ago, and I don't have it committed by heart, but there were long...
Brian, committed to by heart? I was just wondering. Okay, all right, thank you.
There were a long number of items that were listed that no longer require site plan approval, and I believe that was something that Mr. Ferrero looked at and said, yes, this doesn't need to go to a board, and I don't know if those would fall within one of them, but they could, or we certainly could add them to the ordinance.
So Renee, maybe that's something that you can just follow up with Mr. Florida and then report back to EC?
Sure, absolutely. And then just finally, the single-use plastics, we keep on the agenda, but the state has number 2776, and that is sitting in the Budget and Appropriations Committee. So EC decided that they're just going to wait to see if the state comes up with something good, then we don't have to invent. So we're just waiting
Okay.
we're waiting for the state.
Great, thank you.
That's all I have. JVH, we have a meeting on Wednesday.
Okay, so Mr. Hickey mentioned the library board. We did have a library board meeting last week. There was really of no consequence. I think we talked about the officers coming in for the next year. I think there's pretty much staying the same as this year. I think there was one switch at the vice president position for the library board. Millage for the library was down slightly. I think we've had that discussion about $20,000, largely attributed to probably a decrease in commercial ratables in town. That's it for the library board. Land use board, there was one matter that the planning board, which Mr. Hickey and I both serve on, that was regarding an extension of the facility up at Hamilton Farm Golf Club. That application was non-controversial. I think it was a 2,100 square foot building practice facility that was approved without really any significant issues being raised there. There was a Board of Adjustment matter for Cancer Support Community. Judy, do you know if that was approved?
That I don't.
Yeah, we'll reach out. I'm sure that was, do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, so we will find out and report at the next meeting. We're still scheduling wrap-up and preparing for Farmers Market 2020. And that is what I have from my subcommittees. Ms. Fernandez, anything to report from your subcommittees? No, not yet. Okay, not yet. Okay.
Just wait.
Ms. Sullivan, can we please have the administrator's report?
A couple things. Last week, the mayor, myself, and most of our emergency services, including Public Works and Police, met with also representatives from Fiddler's Elbow regarding the bridge repair project that is slated for, well, actually, it's a little bit under repair now, but it's slated for next spring. The contractor came to us with a proposal to change the schedule that would make it a 4-month project, maybe even a 6-month project, but he's saying 4 months. He gave us a plan. We discussed it at length. Everyone was on board with the change in the schedule. The only unanswered question was the request from the fire company and first aid squad for if they're going to close the bridge for an extended period of time for 4 months, they would like an emergency turnaround through the center median on 78 westbound. That request was formalized and sent to DOT for their review after our meeting, so we haven't heard back. They said they will get back to us after they have their engineers have a look at it. We didn't get a no.
We didn't get a no,
We didn't get a
and
no.
during the meeting, I was actually emailing our DOT reps in real time about the request, and so everyone is aware of this, and Ms. Cothers, this is right down the street from your apartment. DOT is proposing, and they had proposed a couple years ago, and honestly, it sounds like the project has changed. Originally, when it was presented to us, they were going to close one side of Rattlesnake Bridge Road over Route 78, allow one-way traffic, close the other side, allow one-way traffic in the other direction, and then there might be a brief period of time that the entire road, the entire bridge would be closed to traffic both north and south. There have been some subsequent meetings on this issue, and at this last meeting, a plan was presented, which was, hey, we're going to close, we'd like to, this is from the contractor, we'd like to close the whole road, but we will do the project much quicker. So it was interesting because they presented a plan that they said was already on the books, which would close the road for 3 months to all traffic. They said if we had the permission from the town, DOT would allow us to close the road for 4 months, but that would be the complete project. So there'd be no one-way lane, second lane, one-way lane. So this would be perhaps more difficult with a 4-month shutdown, but that would be the project itself. From an emergency management standpoint, fire and first aid is saying, well, you're sort of isolating all the properties south of Rattlesnake Bridge and making that difficult, which we can get around if we can get onto Route 78 and make a cut through. So for emergency vehicles only, so they can do that U-turn on 78 West, get back on the 78 East, get back onto Rattlesnake Bridge Road, and then head south towards Land of LaBelle and Fiddler's Elbow and everything else. The sentiment from the contractor was that DOT would not agree to that cut through because there are there's guardrails, double guardrails, and they said that the double guardrail is something that DOT is adamant about not cutting openings in. So it's something that we said, well, we're not going to find out until we ask. So we are making a full court
Right.
press on DOT.
So that's all been forwarded to them, and they said they will review it and get back to us. Next item, last year we wanted to be part of a replacement tree program for free seedlings from the New Jersey Tree Recovery Campaign partners. However, by the time we heard about the program and put in our application, we were too late. It is coming back. This is a program for free seedlings for New Jersey communities to help replace trees that were lost during Hurricane Sandy. So they're having it again. The deadline to sign up is, I don't have it in front of me, in December. The trees would need to be made available to the public between March 29th and May 5th. Oh, the 2020 request is due by January 16th. And they are requesting, there's an application that has to be filled out, and the town would have to actually submit a plan of how we would roll this out to the community, what information we would provide to residents about planting the trees, and we can request up to 1,000, but we don't have to request 1,000. We might want to request 250. I mean, it's up to us what we want to do, but I'm thinking maybe the Environmental Commission would like to take a look at it and see if this is something that they want to pursue.
I'm pretty sure they do.
What was the date that has to be made available to the public?
So we have to apply by January 16th. The trees, the 6-inch to 24-inch high bare root seedlings have to be picked up between March 29th and May 5th for distribution to the public.
When does the farmer's market start?
June.
Beginning of June.
It doesn't work. See where I'm going
Now,
with
do
that?
they have to be picked up by the municipality for subsequent distribution?
They're available at a location in Bridgewater, and we would have to go pick them up by the May 5th date.
So to Doug's point, we, as municipality, we could pick them up and then arrange for distribution at a month or two down the road.
I don't know how long you want to keep them, but where we keep them, we'd have to talk about all that, but
How we keep them.
how we
On?
keep 'em.
And then keep them alive.
Have facilities management.
Farmer John.
Assuming that they're bare root, they should probably be put in the ground as soon as they start to grow. As soon as you receive them, they need to be planted. Usually what they'll do is they'll harvest them, send them out. As soon as that happens, they should be planted.
And do we know what species are available through this program?
I have a list of probably at least 30 different types of trees. We can request whatever we feel is best for our area. I'll show this to John. He's pretty savvy with trees. But I can forward this whole application to maybe Environmental Commission for their review. Take a look.
Okay?
One of the,
So anyway, if we want to do it, there's time. We just have to make up a decision by January 16th.
so on my travels this fall, I was speaking with some folks that are very into trees, and they were mentioning that Hills Drive is populated with a ton of ash trees. I don't know that to be true or not, but if it is, this is something that we should probably focus in on because those ash trees are going to go due to the blight that's out there and the disease.
We have a lot of ash trees in the hills, and almost every neighborhood has to have a program how to treat them. So like my neighborhood pays $3,000 a year to have the ash trees treated. So if we could get rid of, and there are a lot of dead ones already on Hills Drive, so if we can get rid of those and put in ones that they're providing, that would help a lot.
And look, I mean, they're saplings, so it's going to take some time for them to grow, but now we're seeing the benefit of 30 years of growth, and I think that everybody would agree that Hills Drive is a magnificent drive when it's all leaved and it's in bloom. It'd be a shame to see just swaths getting cut out because of dead trees. So if we invest in the future now, plant some saplings now, we figure that over maybe 5-10 years, we lose some, now we got 5-10 years of growth on them.
I'm sure all the master associations would be happy to participate in this because everybody lost trees. And I would almost guarantee that they didn't replace everything that came down during Sandy.
And
So-
the liaison to matter is
Moi.
Doug and,
Second.
okay.
We'll take it over. We'll do
Yeah.
it. Let's get together and figure
We'll get
that out.
environment together with HEM. Yep.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we'll
that'd be
look
great.
forward to it.
Thank you, Judy.
Next question. As we know, the annual reorg meeting of Betty Merck Dinner is going to be Friday, January 3rd. Normally, our meetings are the first and third Monday. I don't know if you want to take a peek at your January calendar. That would mean our first meeting that we would actually pay bills at would not be until Monday the 20th, and the 20th is Martin Luther King Day, so it would be the next day, which would be Tuesday the 21st. And between our last meeting in December to that time, that's a really long time to be without a meeting and to pay bills. So I'm suggesting that we maybe make our second meeting in January, Monday the 13th. And then we would start budget meetings Monday the 27th of January, with your approval, of course.
Tina?
Well done.
So the way we still have a week in between, but we'd have our reorg meeting on the 3rd, we'd have our first business meeting on the 13th, and then that'll be our second meeting, and then we can have a budget meeting still on the 27th for the last Monday in January.
Okay, so you're proposing the 13th, not just to do a review bill session, but to actually have
No,
the full...
have our actual
Okay.
second meeting of January on the 13th.
Okay, unless there's any issues or...
A lot of people go away on that MLK Day, skiing or whatever, that's a Monday holiday, and coming back on a Tuesday. It would just, I think, flow better.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, you said that holiday weekend is which one?
For the 20th. I'm saying-
20th, okay.
Right, we don't,
Gotcha.
I'm staying away from
Gotcha.
that. So we
Okay.
would have our meeting on the 13th, and then we'd have a budget meeting on the 27th.
Right.
Agreed.
And we do a bill meeting in late December. So you have
Yeah.
that- Yeah, so that makes sense.
Right.
Spread it out.
Okay,
So okay with that?
Yep.
Good solution.
Okay.
well done, Judy. Good.
And lastly, as part of our IT meeting that Colin mentioned earlier, one of the requests from the police department and the court, currently when they have actual trial, where they have to bring in a video from the police department that shows the actual arrest, all right? The court does not have any kind of a method to show that video other than maybe on a laptop, or the police will roll over a cart from their processing room and in here into court. It's a very cumbersome process. So the police were proposing, and the court is also requesting, some sort of a video setup that we could have a camera suspended from the ceiling that would project onto our screen or even onto a TV monitor wirelessly. Last Friday, Sergeant Bernardo, myself, our team manager Vashant, and Grenco Industries that actually installed our video and recording system here in the room came to review everything, and they're going to get back to us probably in the next 2 weeks or so with a couple of proposals. And we'll bring that back to you with some, costs and what we think, you can look at.
It's a discussion that you and I had, and I separately had with Mr. Key. Wouldn't it just be cheaper just to get T-screens?
Yeah, that's one of the options.
And then just project by Bluetooth, or?
We did talk about that, so they're going to give us a camera option, a Bluetooth option, a wireless monitor on the wall option. They're going to give us 4 or 5 different options. So, and we can look at them and see what we think is the best solution. So, that'll whatever's going to accommodate the police first of all, but then they'll be used here for our presentations and other things we have at all our various meetings.
What does, Stacy, what does the county use?
We do have screens.
Screens?
Yeah, screens, but you would also have to, I'm sure you're working with the court to make sure that it's appropriate, that the
Right.
prosecutor's in agreement, the judge is.
Yeah, so the chief's been working with us and what that'll, because we have a shared court, what Burnetsville needs, what P-PAC needs, what Bedminster needs, so.
Some things can be seen by certain people and some things can't. So sometimes the laptop does become an option
Right,
because.
right.
you
And
might
we
wanna
talked
go
about that
something
too.
To the judge in camera that you don't really want anybody else to see, and if it goes up on the screen.
Right, so we did have an option that there could be just, a small laptop type vision for the judge, if that was something like you're saying, that just judge needs to look at it, not necessarily the whole courtroom. So, yeah, we're looking at number of options.
Is that something that goes through the judge, or does that go through the AOC?
I don't think the AOC comes into it, it's more what we want to do here. It's just, right now, the police are rolling over a audio-visual cart, and it's just very cumbersome, so.
It's a tube TV.
We got to repurpose it somehow. And Judy, I assume it's, the cost is driven by integration. The more you want to integrate with this room and the systems that are in
Right,
place.
so that's why
that
we have
drives the cost.
Gramco to do
Right.
the proposal. We do still have some grant money available in our communications grant that hopefully will make the purchase without any capital.
And as Colin mentions integration, I just want to make sure that, in the past, sometimes towns want to pick the lowest low dollar, but may pick a technology that is already out of date. And so I think we should make the decision, the technology that's appropriate now and is going to be appropriate
Going
as
forward.
technologies
Absolutely.
continue to evolve.
So that's forthcoming. And that's it for my report. I do know the mayor had a question for the chief.
Right, so, Chief, so we understand in the last 2 weeks, there's been some vehicle incidents overnight, some cars being broken into last week, and I think it was just this week. So if you could just give us a status report of what happened, what you think is going on, and any recommendations that the residents can take to implement themselves, and if there's anything going on policing on this issue.
Sure. So within the last 10 days, November 6th, which is a Wednesday night, into Thursday morning, we experienced a lot of residents were victimized by vehicle issues. We came to find that we lost a BMW from Stonehouse Drive. Keys were in it, unlocked, were stolen. And then we lost two more off Larger Crossroad. One was a BMW and one was a GMC product.
Same thing, keys were unlocked and keys were inside?
Correct. We had a third attempt off of Fowler Road where there was an open garage. The key was in the car. They tried to move the car out of the garage. They got the car hung up on the pillar trying to get, so they left the car and went. In addition to that, we had about 4 or 5 different residents, 1, 2, 3 cars, maybe in driveways, or in one circumstance, they went in the garage, rooted through the interiors of the cars. So I understand in the garage, you don't lock your car. You might want to lock your garage door. For the cars on outside, the cars are locked, so it's a crime of opportunity. They're not breaking windows. They're coming, they're checking door handles, they're getting in, looking for what they can get, and getting out. So leaving valuables in the car, they might break your window, but you're giving up your security by not locking your vehicle. So, things got quiet, and 2 of the vehicles have been recovered. So, Friday into Saturday night, we experienced, in the same general area, I call it the northeast sector of Bedminster, starting from Lamington Road and working itself up on the east side of 206, where we had a resident, 2 unlocked cars rooted through, and 1 lost a purse. And then up on north of 206 to the east, we had another vehicle that was entered and chain was stolen, and then a third vehicle, nothing was missing. So it's a matter of, if you want to be secure, you need to lock your car. And you know, my biggest fear is if you don't lock your car, most people have garage doors openers in their car. All they have to do is pop it open and now they're in your house while you're sleeping. So, and we need help to protect you, but if you shore and secure your belongings, you're in a much better position. As for who's doing it, you know, that we're looking, it's not just centralized in Bedminster, you know, Reddington has been hit, Burgess Township has been hit, Berkeley Heights has been hit, so it seems like it's a 78-287 corridor, where they're coming in, you know, making away, an easy score is an easy score.
Is there anything that the prosecutor's office is looking into? I mean, since this is affecting multiple jurisdictions.
It's multiple jurisdiction, but I mean, there's, you know, the state has, you know, different task force that combat this issue on a daily. So, I mean, the prosecutor's office is aware, but, you know, there's really nothing to go on. It'd be different if we came up with a couple of suspects, and then you can start, you know, investigating.
And I think it was, what, just less than a year ago, there were 2 arrests that were up in the hills, where there was 1 arrest that was made?
And there were people on foot checking cars, yeah.
Right. And, you know, just interesting that you hear the roads that are impacted, Fowler Road, Old Stonehouse. These are not off 206. These are, you have to go off the highway and then find your way to these streets.
And then you have to go off the street and go a quarter mile or half a mile to find cars.
Okay.
So I can throw a little flavor on that. One of the folks over on O'Brien Court, which would be behind the libraries, their personal belongings ended up on Ski Hill Drive, my neighbors. My house, both of my cars were rummaged through. My neighbors were rummaged through, and it's my fault I didn't lock my car, and I would normally do, but perhaps not, I didn't. So they're not even looking for belongings. I had my work bag in my car, I had a pair of sunglasses up top, I had change in my front console. None of that was taken. All my papers were rummaged through in the center console. They were looking for my keys. They want the car. But I think your point is right. So when the police say lock your door, they mean it. And let me be the public service messenger. Lock your cars, because it's no fun to go out and see that somebody's gone through your stuff.
Yeah, 6 months ago, I caught a guy coming down my driveway on a Sunday night after 11:30, and saw the car parked out front, lights on. I had my lights off. I usually keep them on all night. Was watching the car, saw him with the phone in the car, then get out, started coming down my driveway, and ran over, flipped the lights on, caught him in the lights, he ran back up the driveway, took off in the car. So it's more commonplace than you think, so.
Yeah. You know, obviously the fear is, you know, that this week, this month, this year, it's going through looking for unlocked cars with keys, and in 2 years maybe they want something more. So whatever we can do to nip it, let's nip it. I know that
The chief's point about bringing your remote in from your car is a good one. You know, we have 2 cars in the garage, 2 out, and got to bring the remote in, because they get car with the remote, they're in.
Well,
So
my remote's in the car.
Yeah,
My
well-
garage door opener's in my windscreen.
yeah, so
your car.
my daughter has an older car with a remote that's just portable, but
Yeah.
we bring it in. So be vigilant.
And is there a, you know, I am a lawyer, but so are you, but the distinction between breaking into a car and breaking into a garage, whether it's an attached garage or a detached garage, does that increase the level of crime?
No, I mean, it's both considered burglary.
They're both burglary?
In fact, you know, you're not privileged to do so. But, you know, it becomes an issue when you break into somebody's home and then you confront a person, you know. That's when it starts upgrading. And also, I might bring to light that, you know, there's simple fixes. So if you just get a motion spotlight that points on your car, so motion, light comes on, they might, you know,
Yeah.
go the other way if your car's locked.
on that point, I cut you off, and I have that, Chief, so it didn't deter. But I'm going to step up my game. I got a plan. I don't want to divulge it in the public records in case they're watching, but I got a plan.
So does it involve those 2 dogs?
It involves
Peter?
infrared vision. Yeah, and 2 dogs.
Mine involves a 9mm.
Well,
Your license there, John.
well, I'm certainly
It's
glad
registered.
that no one was injured, no one was harmed, but certainly, you know, these crimes of opportunity, as Chief said. Lock your cars. Okay.
And Chief, if we eliminate the opportunity, is it your expectation that people will move on because people start to get wise, lock their cars, maybe install cameras, then the thieves move on to a different town? If we start
I
to,
would imagine so. I mean, if you run the numbers and you come and you keep striking out, you know, as people start securing.
right,
I mean, right now, to me, you're an easy target. If we were
Right.
seeing crew that came out here, and they're like, aha,
right.
you know?
So it proves to be, we should be vigilant, lock doors, because we'll eliminate the source of opportunity and they'll move on, hopefully.
And also, this is the same message, and whether it's in the northeast quadrant, or whether it's in the western quadrant, or it's in the hills, get the notice out. So, for Doug and Renee, if you're going to be meeting with Hills Village Master, once again, just to re-emphasize this, because, you know, it was just really, within the year, there was that arrest made, so, happens there, happens everywhere, so
Yeah.
let's
And
Let's keep the stores
we do put
locked.
it out on Facebook, so, you know,
Mhm.
like us.
But also, and
We saw it, we just didn't follow your direction.
Sure, Chief, have we done a Nixle alert? Is that warranted?
I don't know, you know, to me, Nixle's more, I guess it's, you know, security, maybe I could do it without the text feature, and, you know, flood it to your email, but I think Nixle's more for like, your comments. in my
Got it.
opinion.
I'm just thinking any way to get the word out so that, you know, people wise up quickly and, you know,
Division 12 had the word, you know, it's not, we're not immune to this problem.
right.
So-
So you think we are, right?
Yeah.
And that's, you know, we get lulled into complacency.
That's right. Right. Okay, thank you, Chief. Moving on, discussion on introduced ordinances scheduled for public hearings. And, well, let's see, the first thing we have is an introduction of an ordinance. So this would be introduction of ordinance 2019-12, an ordinance amending section 4-1 entitled Soliciting, Canvassing, and Peddling of Chapter 4 entitled General Licensing of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Bedminster. This ordinance amends the township's regulations and license requirements for the soliciting, canvassing, and peddling, a term you hear very much these days, peddling in the township. The public hearing for this ordinance is scheduled for December 2nd, 2019 at 7 p.m., 1 Miller Lane, Bedford, New Jersey. So to introduce the ordinance, we'll need a motion.
Moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
So having said that, the public hearing will be December 2nd, but I will now turn this over to Ms. Santucci. You want to just give us an update on what this ordinance is accomplishing and why?
Sure, Mayor. You may remember that the chief, Renee, and myself worked with John Bellardo and Joe Sardillo to update our ordinance. The chief and his team need to vet those wanting permits to solicit in our town. Last time we met here, we took a look at some suggested amendments, and we did take out the no-knock provision. And we also added language that would allow the children in schools to go door to door.
You still get Girl Scout cookies, thank you.
So if there's, you know, obviously if there's any changes or any suggestions, we can still make those, but I think it looks fine. Mr. Sardillo said it looks fine. We introduced as is. I did check that language. The knock is out.
No knock is out.
The children are in. So I think we're good. But this will allow the chief to move forward with what he needs to do in order to properly vet those solicitors commercially.
Chief, any comment before, once again, this is not the public hearing for it, but any comment about the...
It's a long time coming, and it's just also modernizing what we had on the books to make it, you know, real time.
Okay, great. So once again, the public hearing for this ordinance will be scheduled for December 2nd. Public hearing of ordinances. We have an ordinance that is up for its public hearing, and this is ordinance number 2019-011 or 2019-11. This ordinance authorizes the township to accept a deed of conservation and agricultural easement from Robert Scully and Nancy Perritzman for a portion of the property identified as Lot 24.08 in Block 8 and Lot 24.08 in Block 8 Q Farm, located at 1400 Black River Road, Bedminster, New Jersey. And we have a motion to open up the public hearing.
I'll make that motion. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
So to start off the public hearing for this ordinance, I'd like to bring up Beth Davison from New Jersey Conservation Foundation.
We
So-
have some things
And we do have some audio visuals tonight. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Beth.
Nice to see that.
You can say that out loud.
I just did.
Louder.
Be nice if we had that new AV system in place.
While you get that going, I'll
Have a little song and dance first.
My name is Beth Davison. I work for the New Jersey Conservation Foundation, and we provide open space and farmland preservation consulting services to the township. We've been doing that since 2002, which has been a long run. It's been a very productive run. In that role, a lot of the time, we're securing grants from the state to acquire open space through the Green Acres program, or through the farmland program to acquire farmland preservation easements. Farmland preservation easements restrict property from being further subdivided and restrict the amount of development that can occur, but the land remains in private ownership. So you can see on the map there, a lot of the land in Bedminster that has been preserved through the Farmland Preservation Program is in brown. The stuff that's in green is open space that's been preserved in many cases through the Green Acres program. So tonight I'm here, instead of asking for money, which is usually what I like to do when I come before you, to do farmland preservation. We help the township secure state money, but then in farmland preservation program, generally speaking, there's a municipal and a county cost share as well. It's a 60-20-20 split generally. So, but in this case, the landowner has actually offered to donate the easement, thereby saving the township the local cost share, allowing that state money to be used for other farms, so it kind of furthers farmland preservation in the township. So it's very exciting, and it's a great project to be here in front of you about. So the property in question is highlighted in yellow. It's about 75 acres of farmland, and you can see that that and the property immediately to the north are both owned by the Scullys. They own the last farmland along that Black River Road corridor to the north along Lane that hasn't been yet preserved, and it's across from that green property on the other side of the road is the township's Millhouse Associates property. So protects the preservation of this property.
Yeah,
in
over
addition
here,
to-
right.
Yeah, exactly. In addition to completing kind of the farmland preservation matrix along that road, it also protects the view shed from the township's public open space. So it's got a couple of different roles there. This property has actually been targeted by the township for farmland preservation in its comprehensive farmland plan as a priority. And prior to that, in the initial planning incentive grants back in 2004, it was identified as a high priority and was then called the Black River project area for the planning incentive grant. So it's been on the radar for a really long time. It's something that the township has wanted to protect for a long time. And the Scullys approached us in the summer about protecting the property. Initially, we were talking about the farmland preservation program where the township would be approached to purchase an easement, but ultimately the Scullys decided that it better met their needs both timing-wise, but also protection-wise to donate an easement. The mayor asked me to come in front of you and tell you a little bit about what they're going to protect through this easement donation.
Generally speaking, in the farmland preservation program, if it's just the state, there isn't an impervious coverage limit associated with the deed of easement. The limit, it's limited only by the local zoning, but in the Scully's case, they would like to include an impervious coverage limit of about 2 acres total, which is about 2.7% of the property. So that's more restrictive than your local zoning. Usually in farmland easements, there's also no limit to how much agricultural structure. Actually, Judy, could you go to the next slide now? We'll get a little bit more focused. Since I'm going to be talking about different sections of the property. So the property here is outlined in black, and that blue section is what's called the residence area or the exception area. The area outside of the blue is the easement area. So usually in the easement area under the state farmland program, there's not a limit on how many ag buildings you can put up. But the Scullys in this case would like to limit it to 1,000 square feet of structures outside of that exception area. So that's a much more intense limitation than we usually have, and will protect the viewshed from.
So just to be clear, the Scullys are giving us an easement that is more onerous or more protective than the standard SADC easement.
Yes, they have a great desire to protect the conservation resources on the property. So they're offering to donate an easement that's more restrictive so that they can protect the property further than the farmland program would have.
Is that a creek at the bottom of the property?
Sorry?
Is that a waterway or a creek there?
Mm-hmm. Yep. The other thing that they want to do is, so most of the structures, there'll be some limited structures allowed outside the easement area, up to 1,000 square feet. But most of the structures will be focused in that exception area. And again, in the farmland easement, there would be less limitation in that exception area. The Scullys would like to limit both the size of the houses that are allowed in there. So the main house, they'll allow a main house to be built, which would be limited to 6,700 square feet, and a secondary dwelling would be limited to 1,200 square feet, which is less than what the local zoning, of course, would allow, and is not required under the easement that if they were to participate in the farmland preservation program. And beyond that, the easement would allow for additional structures in there, a barn, etc. But again, they want to limit how much structure can go in there. So they would like to include a limit of 7,500 square foot of total other structures to be allowed in that area. Lastly, they're very concerned about preserving the ag soils and the conservation resources on the property. So where the farmland program does not limit cutting of woods, their easement would. So anything that's wooded now would be protected as woodland, that stream corridor. And also, they want to include some limits on how many animals can be housed there so that it doesn't get overrun and overgrazed. So all in all, better protection, no cost, donation, it's a very exciting project to work on.
And Beth, what's the property, what agricultural use is the property now?
It's currently, I believe, there's some pasture with sheep, and there's some corn and hay.
Okay. While we have Beth, we'll start with Township Committee. Any questions for Beth or any questions regarding the easement? And just throw out, and I know this because John Bellardo has instructed us, that the reason this is an ordinance and not simply resolution, since the town is accepting an instrument in real property, that the accepting of this easement from someone else must be achieved through an ordinance, not a resolution. So for us to sign on to this easement and be the beneficiary of the easement requires adoption of the ordinance. So questions or comments regarding this offer from the Scully and Patterson family?
It's a big win. I know one of your criteria is the contiguous nature of the properties, right? And
Yeah.
you mentioned the Millhouse properties as well as the other preserved properties. That's a huge win for the township. Thank you for your work.
There's another component actually, and Colin, you mentioning that it fits right in, which is, so the Scullys own the adjacent parcel, and as you identified, it's the parcel to the north. As Judy's going to try to zoom in on that. And so right now, this is the property that the Scullys have in agricultural use, would limit the development of this property to one primary residence and accessory dwelling and limited other structures. But the property to the north has its own story that is ongoing, and Beth, maybe you can just quickly talk about that as well, so we can see this in conjunction with the adjacent parcel.
Sure, so the Scullys wanted to achieve this easement donation in the calendar year 2019, so they've really focused most of their time and energy working on teasing out the language on that. However, the property to the north, as you point out, is also owned by the Scullys. It's 50 acres, and they do intend to focus on that in 2020 in terms of what is the best preservation technique for that. It might be some kind of like a deed restriction as opposed to an easement donation, but they're intending to put their energy and effort into trying to figure out what legal instrument is best for them to achieve the preservation of that property in 2020. So we'll hear more about that.
And the unique things about that other property is the landscaping.
Beautiful landscape.
So I believe that there's some famous landscape architect that worked with the Scullys.
Yes.
And Stacy, you'll be pleased to know that I learned about this at the farmer's market, was having a discussion with Mr. Scully, and he certainly invited any member of Township to go up there and meet with him, and he'll show you around the properties, both on the 75-acre piece we're discussing tonight and the 50-acre landscape parcel that will be coming up maybe before us or maybe through another avenue for preservation, but I'm sure that Beth will be keeping her fingers on that as it arises.
Absolutely. I think Judy had mentioned to me that the Scullys had also in the past donated mature trees to the township.
So the trees along the highway north of the Jacobus Vanderveer house were donated by the Scullys.
It's,
In
the
between
parallel lines?
Tar Hill Kennels and JBH, there's a number of little leaf lindens, thank you, John, that are along the side of the highway.
You were savvy about trees.
Yes.
She was absolutely right.
So they were planted, the Scullys paid for them to be planted and then donated the trees.
Wow. Nice. Very generous.
So Mayor, I mean, I spent a little bit of time in the Somerset County Open Space Advisory Committee, and one of the things that the county tries to do is to locate and isolate properties that will help connect up greenways. And I share Colin's remarks here. It's a nice piece to do that. I see you've got stuff here to the north, to the east, and this fits in beautifully for that. So, kudos to you and thanks for your hard work. I think it's a tremendously advantageous.
I would love to take credit, but
Yeah, take it anyway.
donation of the Scullys.
Right. If the ordinance passes, we'll be thanking the Scully and Patterson family.
Absolutely, and to that point too, thanks to the property owner for recognizing what we're trying to do and for joining with that fight.
Does the water company's easement go along with the, whatever you're doing?
Does the water companies?
Yeah, the American Water has a water line that runs right through that property.
So that would be, any easement would be subject to, any existing easements would be in line and title first, so those would remain.
Beth, who owns that little chunk that's sticking
That's
in?
another, I don't know who owns that, do you know, Maya? It's an in-holding, it's a house.
Okay.
Is that the Blue House?
No,
No, it's not the Blue House?
there's a house with a barn in there.
Red?
just north of the house, north of the blue house.
North of the blue house?
North of the blue house, there's another house.
No, because the blue house is,
To the south.
no, well, no, because you have the pony farm right there.
No.
I think, yeah,
There's Long Lane,
yeah.
so the pony farm is going to be
I think
right there, that
it's
green.
further up, right, John? It's over by,
This is Pony Farm.
it's a little bit further up the road, because you pass it first as you're heading down Black River. Yeah, it's further
Google Earth,
back
Mayor.
from the road.
So, this one.
Right, and those three easements to the south of Scully are the Morano easements
Right here.
that were preserved on, what, 05, is that, Judy?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Through the municipal planning incentive grant program. I think one of those was actually donated, the one in the upper, right, move your cursor up a little bit, up to the left. That one, that easement was donated by the Moranos, and the two other were purchased through the municipal pig program in the county easements.
Yeah, this is the Pony Farm over here.
Yes.
Okay.
Did you find it, Mayor?
Yes. And let me bring the little fella over here, drop him down. There's a red barn. And I can't really see the house from here. Well, and any further questions from the Township Committee regarding the ordinance
Do we have
or?
an address up there? What was the address, 2100 Blood River
It's on the
Road?
ordinance, right?
You're talking about the other property?
No, I'll Google it.
1400 Black River Road?
1400.
But this is to the property right around it. So while we have Beth, once again, any questions from the Township Committee? Seeing none, may we have a motion to open the public hearing to comments from the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any questions from the public regarding this ordinance? Seeing none, can we have a motion to close
So moved.
the public comment? So moved.
I'll second.
Motion?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay.
So to adopt the...
Now we need a motion to adopt the ordinance.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moraski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacob?
Aye. Motion to turn the lights back on? So, just as Beth indicated and Committeeman Stevenson indicated, tremendous gratitude to Robert Scully and to Nancy Parrotsman for this offer. I certainly have an understanding of Bedminster and what we're trying to do here with open space and keeping this property preserved. So just, once again, we will be thanking them. And Beth, I'm not sure if you're going to be reaching out to Mr. Scully or
Happy to,
or
yeah.
Nancy, but please pass
I will.
pass those regards on.
Thank you.
And we will see Mr. Scully again at the farmer's market next year.
Awesome.
Consent agenda. We've got 4 items on the consent agenda. If anyone wants to pull anything off the consent agenda for individual discussion, now's your opportunity to do so. Otherwise, may we have a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
Just, if I may ask a question, A, we're releasing this individual from a performance guarantee. Is the project completely over, everything fully?
Yes, so we reached out to all the professionals that have been connected to this project. Everything has been completed, all monies that are left now can be used. Yeah.
Thank you.
Still need a motion?
I'll make the motion, Mayor.
I'll second that motion.
We roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moraski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacob?
Aye. And we have 4 resolutions that are not on the consent agenda, and the first one is Resolution 2019-115, designation of a temporary qualified purchasing agent. Ms. Sullivan?
So, if you remember, some months ago, we authorized, with the resignation of our QPA, we authorized appointing myself as the temporary QPA, which I'm serving now. However, in the meantime, we identified a candidate to start attending QPA classes, and the authorization was made that once that candidate successfully completed the first class and indicated they were happy to continue, that we would then change the designation of me being the temporary QPA to that candidate being the temporary QPA. I did reach out to Mr. Sordillo from Mr. Gallardo's office to have him assist in writing this resolution because it had to show the transition from what all the actions that the Township Committee did make. However, the Township Committee, during that first year after of appointing a temporary QPA, does have the authority to change that designation during that first year. So this resolution reflects that change. I'll tell you the candidate, Sarah Hausman, who has been attending the classes. She did her first class. She got 96%, passed everything, loves it, doing great, and is excited about continuing. So this would designate her then as the temporary QPA while she continues in the class.
And maintaining at the same salary rate that was previously.
Right, there's no change in the compensation.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Ms. Sullivan? If not, may we have a motion to approve?
Second.
Again, roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Dickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski? Aye. Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you.
Second resolution is resolution number 2019-119. This resolution authorizes the current fund transfer of funds in the total amount of $2,500. Ms. Sullivan, for an explanation.
So after November 1st, we do have the ability to move funding around. Sometimes in certain areas of the budget, there's a shortfall. In other areas of the budget, there's extra funding. So in this particular case, I will tell you the schedule of the land use board this year has ramped up quite a bit as opposed to past years. And the most of the professional costs are covered through the escrows. But the normal line item in the land use board budget has been, for professionals, it has been relatively low. This year, a lot more activity, so this is a $2,500 move from, actually it's coming over from engineering to just supplement some of these costs with the land use board. There's been some money being used for review of the master plan and things of that nature, so that's why there's additional costs here. So this would cover that.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions or comments for Ms. Sullivan regarding this resolution?
Are any of the land use costs able to be billed back to the applicants?
So all of the land use costs that can be set to a particular project are covered by escrows. These are for non-escrow projects.
Thank you.
And 2,500 might be a little bit on the high side, so we put a little extra cushion there just in case it were really needed, closer to 2, but we did 2,500 to be safe.
And with everything else, this if this money is not utilized by the end of the year, where does that money go?
It'll sit and end up on the surplus.
Okay. We have a motion to approve Resolution 2019-119.
So moved.
Second?
Again, roll vote, since this has to do with funding. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski? Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next resolution is resolution number 2019-121. This resolution accepts an off-track improvement contribution of $7,500 from Primrose School Franchising Company. And this time, instead of asking Ms. Sullivan for an explanation, we will ask Mr. Bellardo for an explanation.
Mayor, there was a approval of the Primrose School, which is, as you know, the property that Attorney Fisher formerly was in, the house next to, the White House next to the former Burger King. One of the conditions of the Land Use Board approval, based upon anticipated traffic contribution by this use to the intersection with 206 and Burnt Mill Road, and based upon traffic engineering testimony between the respective professionals, was a suggested off-track contribution of $7,500. That is a contribution that would flow to the township, but needs to be accepted by resolution of the Township Committee. The applicant contacted me through their attorney, Mr. Malman. They're actually anxious to pay that and are awaiting the passage of the resolution.
Okay.
So what do those fees go toward?
To be decided.
But associated with traffic improvements and...
And other general or possible uses depending upon the ultimate contribution requirements toward that intersection, whether the township would be required to contribute or not, or whether ultimately it would just be the county and the state. It has to be seen.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Mr. Bellardo, or general thoughts regarding this resolution? None? 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 Seeing none, may we motion to approve Resolution 2019-121?
So moved.
Second?
Again, roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye. And John,
And
with...
Ms. Sullivan, if you'd be so kind to get me a certified signed copy of that, I will get it over to applicant's attorney and direct him to make the contribution to the Township of Bedminster and to your attention.
Well, that answers my question I was going to ask, so thank you.
Done.
So you don't want a scanned copy, you want a certified copy?
No, you could send me just a copy by email.
A scanned copy is fine?
That's fine. Just something to indicate that it was adopted, so the applicant is aware of that.
Next resolution is Resolution 2019-122. This resolution is the extension of the, so you have to find out where it is, Somerset Hills Municipal Alliance and Youth Services Commission regarding Governor's Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse Fiscal Grant Cycle, July 2020 to June 2025. And Ms. Sullivan, I will turn to you for the explanation of this grant application.
Yeah, I got an email from Sherry Kalish, who is the manager of this program for towns, for Burnsville, Far Hills, Peacock, Gladstone, and Bedminster. Our proposal for, as far as what the amount of funding is done annually. Each of the mayors sign off on it. The mayor can't sign off without Township Committee approval. And this is just for the grant to continue for 2020 and 2021. The committee will then meet and decide actual uses for the funding, but as Mr. Stevenson said earlier tonight, the 2020 funding and beyond has been reduced by approximately 50%. So they are looking at other options to raise additional funds that could be added to this grant. But this is to extend the grant.
And Chief, just for, I don't want to, spring this on you, but for examples of how the grant has been utilized in the past?
It's specifically earmarked for our DARE program. So, it supports the DARE program, it's giveaways, it supports graduation, and, what follows up to graduation.
Oh, so these are the funds that go back to project graduation?
No.
No?
At our DARE program, my understanding, if this is Municipal Alliance,
Right.
so it supports Bedminster DARE program at the Bedminster School.
Okay.
There are other projects too at the high school level.
So,
Right, through the same program, but
Correct.
not that we would authorize here through.
Right.
Right. Any other questions or comments for Ms. Sullivan or the Chief regarding Resolution 2019-122? Seeing none, we have a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, again, roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski? Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you.
May we have a motion to approve the bill list pending review of individual invoices?
Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Mayor, I'll second that motion.
Roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Abstain?
Mr. Hedy?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Chambers?
Aye.
Thank you.
New business. Resolution 2019-114, review of OPMA and OPRA laws. Ms. Sullivan.
This is actually from the Municipal Clerks Association of New Jersey. The officers of the organization have been working very closely with the executive director of the Government Records Council, who is Senator Loretta Weinberg, and they have been working closely proposing some potential changes to some of the OPRA laws and OPMA laws. This resolution is a resolution of support to the Municipal Clerks Association, who is requesting, along with New Jersey League of Municipalities, to review and examine the effects of OPRA on local government and, the requirements. And they're asking that a commission be formed that would do a comprehensive review of OPRA laws. In support of this resolution, they also requested, and you'll see it in the resolution itself, they asked us to compile the amount of time that just the Bedminster staff spends working on OPRA requests. And you can see in the resolution, it's rather significant. Not only the time, I will tell you in 2017 we had 372 OPRAs, 2018 365 OPRAs, it happens to be one a day. 2019 to date we've had 340 so far this year. And over 368 hours, a year we usually spend, and not to mention all the money spent with official legal review by our attorneys, not only Mr. Gallardo, but often our labor attorney, and working with the police department, and just a lot of time is spent. So the question is, should we review the laws and just see if there's any changes that should be suggested? We don't have a recommendation at this time. It's asking for the commission to be formed to do so.
I mean, the law went into effect in 2002. I think it's time, I think by this time people know there are great things about it and there are things that do need to be tweaked. So, and I think all the municipalities, the counties, they're all dealing with the same issues. There are certain things that would make sense to change, and everybody who deals with it knows what they are. So if you have some great people on that commission, they can really make some changes that will provide transparency while also helping the municipalities and the public entities that are dealing with.
My recollection is that when Senator Weinberg was first talking about this a few years ago, and I think this has been pending now for several years, is that it was, to use a term, the unfunded mandate that would require additional obligations on every municipality, and not just municipality, but school boards. School boards! He's awake. He's not asleep. So additional obligations on all these elected governing bodies, including school boards and local governments. And I'm not sure where Senator Weinberg stands with that legislation, but the fact that the League of Municipalities is taking a position that perhaps these laws should be evaluated and assessed where these laws are going and the burden that they present to the municipalities. In a small municipality like ours, some OPRA requests can be quite burdensome and time-consuming, and sometimes may involve hiring additional staff to just handle them.
Yeah, we're at least get one a day, at least one a day.
So what's the exact request? Is this a request that's coming in from both the League and from the Clerks Association?
Yes, so we're asking at this point, this is, you can see on the last page the list of distribution that this resolution will go to. Normally, we don't do these too often, occasionally if it's for a good cause, so this is why I just put it before you as new business, if you feel it's an important enough subject, that their simple request is that they appoint a commission to look at it.
And I will say, since I've been on committee for just about 7 years, the amount of times that we've passed symbolic resolutions or or resolutions of support, I can really only think about maybe 2 or 3 times. I think the last one we did was for Senator Sweeney is on the path to progress.
Yes.
I think that was the last one that we did. So there's no immediate action that's required now.
No.
So what I would like, maybe for December 2nd, is that we all take a look at this, and Jude, if you get any more information, or John, or anyone else, or I'm going down to League as well, if there's any discussion about this, we'll report back December 2nd, and if
Yes,
appropriate,
there's no
put it on the
time
agenda.
clock that this has to be submitted by a certain date.
Okay.
So Judy, do you feel that there's been an increase in Oprah significantly since President Trump's taken office?
Absolutely. I don't know if the chief goes to a lot of Oprah seminars, as I do myself. Usually when I go and we'll be in a room, if someone recognizes me as the municipal clerk from Bedminster, they normally point me out and say, anybody that's complaining about how many Oprah requests you have, go talk to that lady over there, she's probably got more than you. Yes, we get probably at least a third of our requests are somehow significantly tied to the president.
So you think that 2015 and before was about 200, 250 a year?
Could be, yeah,
Still a lot.
still.
Okay, so keep this on the agenda, and
Yeah, that's fine.
let's target it for December 2nd. So in the meantime, everyone, please take a look at it, and we will be returning to this. Which brings us to old business, and we will start with the vacant property and house maintenance issue, and we will turn to Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I circulated, or I asked John to circulate to us in advance of the meeting, the draft ordinance on this. So hopefully you've got that, similar to what we did with the solicitation or non-solicitation ordinance, however you look at that. I just ask that you take a look at it and let me know if you've got your thoughts. I can sort of take you through it. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's not too long. Basically, what we're looking to do is limit this to the village neighborhood zones. It's going to capture our commercial corridors. And then basically what it sets standard for what we expect out of our commercial corridor. Folks that are in violation will get a notice of the violation. They have a period of time in which to respond. If they don't, we set forth violations and penalties, and then ultimately the nuclear option is for us to go out and authorize our folks to go make the necessary repairs, and then of course the cost for doing that gets assessed back to the property as a lien. If necessary, we sell the lien, get the money. So it's not ever an issue of us being out the money. One of the things that I had mentioned over the last couple meetings, you'll see on the second to last page, the very last section 3-18.9, and it is just a clause that Mr. Bellardo included to make sure that the enforcing agency is in fact the township, and this is not going to pit commercial owner against commercial owner. Their property is affecting my business, and then you've got two owners, or I don't know if there'll be residents, but I guess they don't have to be, but two owners in town going down to municipal court and duking this out. That's not what we're after here. We're not, again, looking to insert ourselves into the lives of our residents, and really just trying to address the obvious sites that we've got in the village district that requires some action.
And I think it's important, as Mr. Stevenson emphasized, to indicate that this is extremely limited. It is only the village neighborhood zone. It is no residential zones. It's no other office or other commercial zones. In speaking with our zoning officer, the problem, as I think many of you are aware, that exists is in particular with some of the properties in the village neighborhood zone that have fallen into significant disrepair beyond the pale of that particular neighborhood and the norms of maintenance and upkeep.
And so we can identify these are properties in Pluckman Village and up in Bedminster Village. Right?
Correct.
Those are the
Right.
so we're sort of speaking around
Yes.
speaking around this issue. but like to bring it to incorporate some specificity. So those two areas.
So just looking for comments. If you see something you like, don't like, expand, you want to limit, you want to question about, just reach out for me. We'll work through it.
And
But,
Doug, are you anticipating we've got 2 meetings coming up in December and a bill, meeting for paying bills. So do you anticipate this as a 2019?
if we can get it in for 19, Mayor, and we've got the meetings, I'd like to do that.
Okay.
I'd like to see that through. Again, that's been, of all the issues that were out there, I would tell you this is probably front and center from the concerns that we were getting back from our residents, that these are things that they expect action on, and that's what we're going to do. We'll deliver for them.
Okay, great. And once again, Doug, thank you for shepherding this.
No problem, my pleasure.
Short-term rentals. So Judy, do we have any update on short-term rentals, enforcement, registrations?
Nothing per se to update that we haven't already talked about.
Okay, and I will just report that we've been aware that Jersey City did a referendum limiting Airbnb, well, limiting short-term rentals in Jersey City, and that referendum was, I don't want to say overwhelmingly, but it was certainly passed with a significant majority. So there are limitations that the folks in Jersey City approved. Colin and I were remarking that it's not often that you see a referendum in Jersey City being the subject of New York City advertising dollars, but certainly Airbnb was taking a little bit of effort trying to fight that referendum being passed, and they lost. So it is interesting to see, but just, you know, we're not Jersey City, we're a little bit different out here, but it's just interesting to sort of just gauge the sentiment in Airbnb. And once again, I will note that in conversations with some of the condo associations, it was anticipated that that would be a large concern for them, and not so much. It certainly is a concern, but it has not risen to the level of being a super priority. And once again, Doug and Renee, you're the liaison to the Master Association, and you did not hear from that, and that was just at that large meeting you guys had, what, about a month and a half ago?
Right.
Yeah. So I find that very interesting. And breaking, I don't believe there's any new developments.
Can we get the sign back, Chief? Imagine it's later in the fall, we're later in the fall. Is there a chance that we can put it back up? I mean, we did get positive response last year from the residents.
Maybe I'll get stolen with the
Just don't leave the keys next to it.
Right, exactly.
They're ready to tie it to the ground.
I think you're getting a maybe.
I'm getting a definite maybe.
Definite maybe.
Like I said, we did get positive response from a lot of residents up in the ski hill, up north of Lamington Road.
Santa's coming.
Look, I mean, it's the time of year, the leaves are off the trees, so sound's traveling a little further than it normally would. I agree, it could help. I would also tell you that I haven't heard too much along the 206 corridor. I'm up there on Ski Hill, so I haven't heard too much, but...
There's someone even closer to the 206 corridor than the three of us.
That's right.
In my backyard, back up.
Yes.
Doug, would you guys hear extra traffic during this time of year, when perhaps there's more deliveries to the stores because it's the holidays? Getting more inventory in?
No, I don't hear 206 at all, except for the engine braking. That's the one event that occurs that everybody hears.
Right.
It's really loud, and that's, what I've said. I think the sign helped, having it up for so long, because I do think you've got repetitive truck traffic down 206. I think that worked. I thought it was effective. I can't tell you that I've heard it, but again, now is the season where stuff's going to start traveling a little further. I'll figure out.
And I'll agree. I'll say that, from where we live, it's, the trees are there and they're leafed, and then they're not leafed, and there definitely is some sound buffering that the trees, maybe even those lindens that John was referring to. And just a quick question for Gina. Having that sign right there at the triangle, does that bother you residents at all? You'd prefer the sign to the no sign?
I think people, there's actually positive feedback that you're trying trying to do something to end breaking, because it tends to happen. Trucks travel or deliveries like the middle of the night. It's not like, oh, okay, during the day, whatever, there's traffic on 206, but it's just looking in the middle of the night. I'll be really get used to it. But I think people appreciated the sign being up, whether it made a huge difference. I didn't really keep track of that. But, so that I don't think anybody, as long as there's visibility there to turn, I don't think anybody.
Okay, good. All right, so your definite maybe has a definite maybe support.
Ratcheting it up a little?
Definitely.
But while we talk about signs and the police, any update on those speeds restricting signs?
Well, yes, we do.
Yes.
Really?
Sorry, I should have mentioned that in my DPW
That's a
summary.
DPW report?
Yeah, well, that's
right.
sitting in the DPW office.
All right, well, let's hear it, Doug.
They're two super-looking cardboard boxes, and they're brown and they're boxed. No, all kidding aside, we've got the 2 units in. I don't believe we've gone vertical with them yet, right? But the plan is to get them out on Black River Road. The discussion was, do we put one on Black River Road, put the other one on Robertson Road, which we know are 2 primary choke points where the people are speeding. I sort of said, I think that's probably you're doing half on both, which is neither will be effective. So sort of my thought was that we do the Black River Road first, both sides of the street, see what it does for traffic, and then if we like what we see, like what we have, we'll order a second set for Robertson, both sides of the street.
So I have a question on this, which is, why do we need one on both the north and south travel lanes? And I'll go back to what you just said, is could we put one on Black River and then one on Robertson? Because we know on Black River, the speeding concern that we heard from the resident seemed to be going out of Pottersville.
As they're accelerating out of the
Yeah, as they're accelerating out.
It's also on that side of the street.
Yeah, true.
I just felt like, doing half on both, you're not really fixing either issue or fully addressing either issue. If you put it on both sides of the street, you have a good analysis by which to gauge speeding on both sides. But
And on Robertson, is the concern folks coming down the hill?
Yes.
So,
That's a big-
as opposed to up the hill. So, I mean, there again,
Yeah.
putting it
Address
on
spots
I
at once.
travel that road every day because I use it from Crestmont to get to 287. That is the best direction. Otherwise, I have to go back out to 206 and come back up. I will drive 19 miles an hour, so people slow up behind me. But they are speeding both ways, and it depends on rush hour. If we're going up to 287, if they're flying that way in the morning, and then they're flying up at night, and not stopping at the stop signs.
And there is,
Trend.
right, there's a single one on Hills Drive, and it's a good reminder, and there's one on Schley Mountain Road, I know it's not in
Two on
Bedminster.
Hills.
In either direction?
Yes.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I noticed the one going,
There's one by Knollcrest going down, and there's one by Crestmont going the other way.
oh, okay, I just one by Crestmont.
Yeah.
But, the reminders, the one on Schley Mountain Road, even though it's not in our town, is a good reminder when you're coming up and down the hill. I know a resident brought up at the last meeting their concerns and desire for a crosswalk, which, look, it doesn't look that practical given where it would have to be located and some legal issues with respect to building it there. This might be a traffic calming measure that I think the residents surrounding developments would support. It's a try. Oh, Chief, what do you think?
I think, I feel complaints of people that live on the east side of Black River Road as well as people that live on the west side. So I think if you're gonna do one, the question is gonna come back, well, how come there isn't one on each side? So I think we have the two, we put them up on Black River Road, let's see what we have. We can always move them. It's gonna be a little work. I mean, it's not gonna be cemented in, but, and for Robertson, I think it's just the way people travel. So I'm coming south on Black River in the morning to get to work. On the way home, I want to get to work and get home. So
Is the plan to, these would be pole mounted on existing poles, or you'd have to put a new pole in?
So we're gonna put new poles in where the existing one. We have to change the pole.
And these are solar powered, battery powered? How are they?
Solar battery. backup.
And do they do data collection?
Sorry?
Do they do data collection?
Sure. In the first year, each sign will go to the cloud, so you can just take it down. After that, depends if you want to pay the maintenance fee every year. Each signed independently.
Right. So you could look in every month and see,
Sure.
that's interesting. So now you can actually make some decisions based on, you know.
So I thought that last time we had raised that issue, that was like a step up in the product that we did not get. So you're saying we did get something that collects data?
Comes with that now.
That's
If we
great.
want to continue it
That's
on a
great.
yearly basis, we can talk numbers for that too, but, I mean, out of the costs for the first year, once we get them out, we have a full year of flat-based service.
So these units, they project to the cloud and that's where it's gathered, or is there some downloading?
It's gotta be a cellular connection to somewhere that's gonna get it back to an IP address.
This is where we all turn to Colin.
Presumably, there's a login for the chief or whoever he designates, and he logs in and can take a look at the data as it's collected in real time or summarized over a course of weeks or months.
And if you don't wanna go that route, you can opt in, you could just get it with an app and Bluetooth. You drop it to a device and then download it.
Okay. And this was all within the budget parameters that we originally came up with?
Yeah, we got 2. For less than what we used.
So like my thought was, let's get them up there, see how we do with them. If they're successful, order a second set for Robertson.
The posts are on order, the signs are on order, we're on this.
Yeah, we're changing out all the speed limit signs to new signs. It'll be all fresh and new up there.
All right. Okay. Thank you for that little detour. Plumbin Park. Judy, not sure whether you have updates or Ms. Velardo, we did.
They were supposed to pay the fine. That was the municipal court outcome. I'm not aware if it has been paid or not.
That I don't know. I know it was completed in court, it was adjudicated, so, whether they paid it, I don't know. I can find it.
I think someone needs to follow up on that.
Are there any further outstanding violations at this point that have not been adjudicated by that penalty?
The last report I got was that all the violations had been corrected. There were even a couple of other, they weren't violations, but repairs that were still noted that we followed up on and were taken care of fairly quickly. Was some work over at Knox Avenue Park that is some
Right.
tree work and whatever that was not really connected to Pluckman Park, that's still pending.
Right.
That-
This connection, that paving
Yep.
that goes up
was
the hill towards...
one additional area that I was asked to look into. John and I had talked about that. There's a brick pathway, patio, walkway, if you will, to get from Buckman Park to Knox Park. And the ask was that we look at that, and it was determined it's really not ours. So we've got to go back to them and to have them figure that out and re-stabilize it, do whatever they need to do so that people aren't tripping over themselves getting to Knox Park. And then the issue that I think you're speaking about, Judy, Knox Park had some dead ash trees up there, and the request from Bill Green was that we remove some of the brush. But before we started doing that, I said, let's pump the brakes on that, let's go back, because once that all comes out, you're going to have direct sight lines right into Fresh Market, and I'm sure that's going to irritate a ton of folks. So we got to make sure that we're all on the same page for that. But the part of access to or out of Pluckman Park into Knox Park, do need to get with Ken and ping him to get back to the landlord's representative to tell him they got to take a look at that.
And on the issue about the brush clearing, is there some plan for follow-up and coordination with the Village Green Association?
Nothing formal, but yes, they don't.
Okay.
So just so you're aware, the estimate that I have currently is $7,200 to remove 25 trees that have been determined to be either a dangerous tree or dead ash trees that we own.
Okay. Mr. Hickey, JCP&L outages.
Mayor, I have no update on the outages, but I do want to recognize Ms. Bianchi, who is our JCP&L rep, also Mayor, obviously, of Berners Township. She was the perfect person to inquire regarding, as Committeeman Stevenson mentioned before, the LED street lighting, because JCP&L has a program where you can purchase them and receive a discount above a certain amount. And she also gave us insight in terms of what Bernard Township is doing, because obviously they're facing the same issues, so she put us in contact with their administrator. So we have specs that we've delivered to Mr. Mance. He's looking at the options, the cost, but she was very supportive of our efforts, and obviously they're going to face the same investigation as they start to revamp their own. So just want to recognize her for that and thank her.
Great.
I have a question. Any chance that any of these old business items are at the point now to be removed, or we're still status quo?
I would keep them all on for right now. I think the zombie house maintenance is probably going to get moved to an ordinance within a little bit. And I would keep Pluckman Park on for one more meeting so we can determine that the penalty has been paid. And at that point, I will tell you, I'm still a little leery of taking it off because of the shoddy history that the facility has, and those residents have been facing.
Remove it and put it back on later if it...
Well, how does that work? Let me ask you, do we have to wait for people to complain, or do we just have the code enforcement officer go out there periodically and do an inspection? I'm just wondering if there's a way that, we can keep an eye on it.
See, the whole issue in that, why we put it on the beginning was because those folks were reluctant
To make the
They were
calls.
reluctant to complain. And that's why I don't necessarily want to pull this off, because those residents, once again, are most vulnerable residents.
Right.
They're afraid of making those complaints because they don't know, they don't have any options. And I think it's important that, we maintain vigilance on that property and to make sure that the property owner is doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Agreed.
And my concern is that if we take it off, that we lose sight of it until
The next level.
Becomes a problem again, that's right.
When we go door to door and
Right.
they only are comfortable telling us them.
Right.
Right.
One item, and I don't want to add something else to old business, but Judy and I did have a conversation with folks from PSE&G regarding essentially the Carol Bianchi analog for PSE&G. PSE&G provides the gas service in our area, and we do have some neighborhoods that are not served by gas, and some neighborhoods that might be that might want it. So one of the things that Judy and I are trying to do is set up a follow-up meeting with the rep from PSE&G, look at a service map, and see if we can identify neighborhoods that might be predisposed to bringing gas service into those neighborhoods, and maybe then coordinating with residents to see if we can't bring enough mass that PSE&G would do so without exorbitant fees tacked on to those residents. So please stay tuned on that. Which brings us to the second round of public comments. Once again, the microphone is open. Someone say up. School board member-elect.
Yes, and among other things, but I'm not speaking on behalf of the school board, except there's one thing.
At least not yet.
Well, there's one thing. The bridge. When I was on the board before, the Rattlesnake Bridge is a big issue with the school bus routes. So I would ask that you,
So the school was represented at the meeting.
fantastic, thank you very much.
Alicia Shower was at the meeting, and she...
Why did I have anything but expectations?
So
going forward? Thank you.
apparently the bridge closure would impact 3 students, and alternate transportation has been already planned for those 3 students during the closure of the bridge.
Fantastic.
And the closure of the bridge would ideally be would happen, it's still going to overlap with the school season, that we can't, if it happens at all.
There's a summer program too, so you never know.
Adjust my tea times.
You'll have to find a new way to get there.
Yes, I'll have to adjust my tea time schedule.
I have a writ for it. Oprah, with which I have some experience in many walks of life. I would like to just point out once again, as I have in the past, Ms. Sullivan and the rest of the staff are just among the best Oprah performers. I mean, getting 6-minute responses by email is unheard of in New Jersey, but yet, there they are. Oh, here you go.
How you doing,
Copy,
Michelle?
10 cents, they're boom,
Excellent.
done. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
excellent.
just amazing. And I'll try to make you work with those requests.
Although,
Although, in the case I'm doing, you could probably...
Brian, if you want to compare Bedminster to Morris County,
we have an excellent
Okay, all right.
Well, I was thinking more of the Somerset Hill School District as my usual, straw dog on those kind of things. And I'm going to try one more time and show to Mr. Bellardo that I actually was paying attention a little bit. Skull's a little dense. So the third round fair share plan and then the subsequent ordinance 2018-010 that followed were part of the court-approved settlement of the whatever. And that's basically, in a nutshell, what it is. Did I get that right?
You did.
Fantastic. And, just as a bonus, ordinance 2007-08, if I may approach, I think this is the ordinance of which you speak, and Ms. Moreski may want to use this with environmental. And good night.
Thank you and congratulations, Brian.
Thank you.
Microphone is still available?
Oh, that one, yeah.
Ms. Cother, you are,
That's it.
Hiding.
you're hiding, now you're not hiding anymore.
No, I'm not hiding any longer. I do want to follow up on how helpful Julie's been getting me my over request also.
Oh, yeah, I just gave her one tonight.
She did. She handed me one right as I sat down, so that's, it was the township on that, thank you. And I can only imagine, Ms. Sullivan, how overwhelmed you may be at times. Yeah, so, but also just to kind of go back on the concern that I brought about, the statute that I was bringing up before, sure, the statute gives the tenant the right to pursue the landlord. But tenants in these positions are, sometimes often vulnerable and typically can't wait for the relocation assistance and go through the, legal actions, going before getting a lien. I know today I went to try and, enforce and file that with the town, and then, went for, I'm getting held up. So, having it reviewed by county council. And, if the township orders the tenant to leave, it should really take the steps to ensure that the tenant receives prompt relocation, assistance, because, waiting for the landlord to pay is rather difficult, and, I'm ordered to leave my residence at the time, given less than 24 hours notice in this instance, between when the inspectors had shown up at approximately 11 o'clock to being given an order of, 1,800 hours. I mean, that doesn't really leave a lot of time, and, a lot of tenants specifically don't really know the ropes, and if this ordinance is in fact brought before, and enacted, which you guys actually have the ability to do per the statute, and I know Mr. Bellardo will look into that further, but, I don't want this to happen to anybody else. I'll take one for the team, but I really want to make sure that this is followed through with, because nobody should have to be in the situation I was put in, okay? I have very little to any savings left. I'm paying out of my pocket. I'm hoping and praying that the landlord makes right on this, but I really, am asking the township to really consider this, because not only me, but this could happen to somebody else. What if this be your son and daughter? Now the holidays are approaching. I don't have anywhere to go. A permanent situation. Yes, my belongings are still in my residence, but I can't really enjoy it. So I'm really putting great emphasis on the importance of this statute needing to be enacted by the committee. So, if anybody has any response to that, I would greatly appreciate it. And, this would only be in absolute emergent situations and limited circumstances. This isn't just for anybody being...
Right. I think on that, that's why I really would like to hear from John as to how this ordinance, what the ramifications are, what the process is, what the funding mechanism is. So this would require a pot of money to begin with.
Yeah, well,
and
taxpayer money.
Right, so that pot of money doesn't exist, and then you've got to go, then the town is put in the position of pursuing the offending property owner. So we need to hear from Mr. Bellardo as to how the mechanics of that ordinance works. And this will be continued.
do you guys have any sort of turnaround time that you would like to see something like this put into motion?
Well, first we want to hear
With
from
the
Mr.
exception
Well,
of-
here, first we want to hear from Mr. Bilardo as to how this ordinance works, and also to see what other municipalities are currently using it and their experience with it.
Ms. Sullivan, you might want to reach out to the other municipalities in Somerset County and just determine if any of them have adopted such an ordinance. I seem to recall that when I was the attorney in Franklin Township in the late 1990s, they had such an ordinance. I don't know if it still exists, but that would be interesting to see how many of the other 20 municipalities in Somerset County have actually enacted a relocation
Yeah,
assistance.
the clerks, we'll send around surveys all the time, so.
That's
I can-
great, thank you.
Okay? Okay. Any other public comments from anyone else out there? Township Committee comments? Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor.
Fresh off his victory.
Yeah, I just, look, I'm very appreciative of what happened with the election. I want to thank everybody for coming out and voting. It was one of the things we were trying to do, was to push voter turnout. And the voters responded. We had a triple the turnout we had from 2015, which was the same election cycle. So for that, thank you for everybody coming. Thank you to everyone for coming out. It's a privilege, obviously. It's an honor to sit up here and to represent the great township of Bedminster. Gina, congratulations. You're going to do a great job up here. Can't wait for you to come up and join us. Not that I'm looking for you to go, Stacy, but time moves on, and it'll be a seamless transition. But again, thank you, and it's an honor, and I hope to keep doing good work for the township over the next 3 years. That's it.
Mr. Hickey.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, congratulations, Ms. Fernandez, Mr. Stevenson, well earned. I look forward to serving with you next year. Mayor, congratulations, even though it's a straw poll. Look, I always say, small towns are like small companies. The mayor sets the agenda, sets the pace, and Mayor, it was very clear on January 1st, it was the rule was engage, right? The Township Committee get engaged, subcommittees get engaged, that was, and I think it's paid tremendous dividends. And thank you for that. I think it's really benefited the town, and look forward to working with you next year to do more of the same.
Thank you. Ms. Santucci.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You'll continue to do a great job. Congratulations to Committeewoman-elect Hernandez. You'll do a wonderful job. Doug, you work very hard for the town, and we really appreciate it. And those are my comments for this evening.
Ms. Moreski.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for continuing to be our mayor. It's been an honor to serve with all of you guys up here. I felt very lucky last year getting elected. Stacy, thank you so much for being such a good friend on this board. We will miss you desperately. We have Gina coming on board and Doug staying with us, and it's going to be a really exciting time. And working with you guys has just been such an education. Gina, wait till you learn. It's really fun, and town's a really great place, and we tried really hard to keep it that way. Real quick for JBH, a little plug. We've got the tree lighting coming up, and the Candlelight Museum tour the day after Thanksgiving, and the day after Thanksgiving at 6:30, the day after Thanksgiving. 29th? 29th. And Colonial Christmas is December 7th and 8th. That's from 11 to 5 on both of those days. And what's the 20th? The 20th for the tree lighting. And just to let you know, with the lights up in the hills, as we're changing out from the old to the new, I personally hate the new because they're blaring light, and there's one right outside my window. So you're going to be hearing comments from people saying, "We love the bright lights, now we can see in the middle of the night." And then those of us who like the nice yellow carriage lights, we like it nice and quiet. So thank you for taking on that responsibility. The town's going to appreciate saving the money, and you're just going to have a lot of fun with that one.
Sounds
and thank
great.
you everybody for coming tonight. We really appreciate you spending time with us and joining in.
Great, thank you. So I will note that we do have an executive session tonight. So after I give my comments, we will be retiring to executive session. We are not taking any action following the executive session. You're more than welcome to stick around if you want to see us adjourn. But we will not be taking any formal action when we return. From my public comments, congratulations Gina, congratulations Doug, and thank you all for putting your trust in me as mayor for the upcoming year. Lock your doors, take yourself out of your cars, and I want to leave on a comment that Renee made earlier today. So Renee and I had a meeting regarding affordable housing, and Renee noted that with incoming Committeewoman Fernandez, that 2/5, 40% of the Bedminster Township Committee has gone through affordable housing in Bedminster. And, Renee, that resonated with me all day. And I think it's really remarkable about about our town. Folks think of Bedminster and they think of, horse estates and jumping and fox hunts and all sort of stuff like that. But Bedminster is governed and will be governed with 40% of the Township Committee having lived and served through affordable housing right here in town. And Renee, I want to thank you for making that remark. As you can tell, it's I think quite meaningful and an indication of how we govern here. With that, may we have a motion to go to executive session?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We will see you or not when we return.
Hey, and Mayor, the way my kids keep eating, you could have a third going down that road too. They're eating me out of house and home, man.
You got your buddy,
Why am I looking at Judy? It's not with her.
No, I'm not looking at you.
Good suggestion.
I'm just sure. Are we on? Are we on? Are we on? We're on?
Run.
Okay, welcome back. It is 10:18 and the Township Committee has returned from executive session. As promised, we are not taking any formal action following the executive session. So, without anything else, may we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you and good night.
Good night.
Oh, look at that.
I'm getting good at covering my ears.
I was gonna say, you anticipate that one.
You scared my dog.
It's